For years, front desk clerks like Haley Davis thought they could decide who belonged just by looking at someone. She saw Marian Cole standing there, black, unbothered, alone, and assumed she was lost. She dismissed her, denied her a room, and smirked when Marian said she owned the place. Haley thought she was in charge. But when they picked Marian Cole to push aside, they didn't know who they were messing with. They didn't know she was the founder of the Hill Ridge Grand, the woman who built 15 hotels from the ground up. A former desk clerk herself, now CEO of it all. And what came next wasn't just justice, it was reckoning. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe. Because the story you're about to hear isn't just about one woman, it's about all of us. Light poured into the marble lobby of the Hill Ridge Grand as Marian Cole stood still, her loafers planted on floors she paid for, facing people who now scrambled to correct their mistake. Outside, the city bustled. Inside, power quietly returned to its rightful owner. The black SUV came to a slow, deliberate stop in front of the Hill Ridge Grand Hotel in Boulder, Colorado. The engine gave one final breath before silence folded over the evening. Out stepped a woman alone. No driver to open her door, no assistant trailing behind. Her name was Marian Cole, and though the world rarely noticed, she had changed it in quiet, brick-and-mortar ways. 48, steady-eyed, dressed in a well-worn navy blazer, cashmere sweater, and scuffed leather loafers that had walked boardrooms and back alleys alike. She carried only one bag, an old canvas tote, faded at the corners, stuffed with papers and quiet power. She looked like someone who knew where she was going, but no one looked back at her. The hotel she entered glowed with quiet wealth, polished marble floors, gold-toned sconces, the gentle clink of cocktail glasses. No fanfare greeted her, but that was fine. Marian didn't come for applause. She wanted a room, a hot shower, and 6 hours of silence before tomorrow's board meeting. As she crossed the lobby, her steps slow but certain, the receptionist barely glanced up from her screen. Young, probably 22, blonde bun too tight, chewing gum like it was a duty. Marian waited patiently before offering her name with a small smile. Cole, Marian Cole. There was a beat. Then the girl frowned, tapped a few keys, and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, we're full tonight, no walk-ins." There it was, that old, sharp feeling. Not quite pain, more like déjà vu, but colder. Marian didn't flinch. "There's always a suite reserved for me," she said evenly. But the girl's lips curled just slightly, dismissive. "Not tonight," she replied. "Are you sure you have the right hotel?" That's when it hit. The disbelief, the quiet insult. That look, have you seen it before? That moment when someone's face says, "You can't be who you say you are." Marian's hand rested calmly on the edge of the counter. No anger, just stillness. And a quiet thought passed through her mind. How many times must a woman prove she belongs in the house she built? The story hadn't even begun, but the air had already shifted. Marian didn't move. Not yet. She let the moment stretch, as though testing the patience of the room. Her fingers traced the stitching of her torso, an old reflex. Years ago, it had calmed her during elevator pitches and loan rejections. Tonight, it steadied her again. And across the counter, the receptionist, Haley, her name tag read, was already looking past her, eyes scanning the lobby for someone more expected, someone who looked the part. Marian cleared her throat gently. "Could you check again? The reservation should be under Marian Cole. I believe there's a suite that's always—" Haley didn't even let her finish. "Ma'am," she said with practiced politeness, "I understand, but unless you have a confirmation number, I really can't." Marian smiled again, slower this time. "I don't need a confirmation number. I own this hotel." There it was, the pause. Then a tiny scoff slipped from Haley's lips, followed by a dry chuckle. "Right. she said. Of course you do. Her voice dipped into condescension, the kind some people use when they're too young to recognize the weight of what they're holding. Look, maybe you got the Hillridge Inn down the road? This is the Hillridge Grand. And just like that, the insult took shape. Two guests near the bar turned to stare. A bellhop froze mid-step. Even the piano in the lounge seemed to soften. Marian stood taller, not out of pride but out of necessity. She didn't raise her voice. Please call your manager. Do you know what it feels like to be mistaken for a stranger in your own creation? To build something from scratch, only to be told, politely, that you... Haley sighed, reaching for the phone with the bored drama of someone asked to humor a child. Fine, she muttered. But this is a bit much. And as she dialed, Marian turned her head slightly, taking in the lobby, the chandelier she approved, the leather chairs she chose. All of it. Her. Yet somehow she was still on the outside. How many doors do we build in life, only to be turned away at them later? The manager came fast. Too fast. Kevin Doyle, mid-40s, tie askew, clipboard in hand like a nervous shield. He smiled the way people do when they think they're still in charge. Evening, ma'am. Having some trouble with your check-in? Marian didn't blink. I'm Marian Cole, she said quietly. And I own this hotel. Kevin faltered. His smile twitched, but didn't quite fall. He turned to Haley with an expectant glance, like this might still be a misunderstanding he could smooth away. We just need to verify a few things, he offered, voice a notch too light. Marian nodded once. Then, without another word, she reached into her tote, pulled out her phone, and tapped the screen. The call lasted 20 seconds. This is Cole, she said into the receiver. I've been denied access to the Hillridge Grand. Again, please correct that. She ended the call. No raised voice, no threats. Just truth spoken like fact. And then she waited. Around her, the silence thickened. A couple on a love seat stopped talking. A young man with a drink paused mid-sip. Even Haley's gum chewing slowed. Then it happened. The elevator chimed. Out stepped Susan Levin, regional director in sharp heels and a sharper jawline. And beside her, Marco Reyes, district operations head, face flushed from the sprint. They didn't glance at Kevin. They didn't speak to Haley. Their eyes went straight to Marian. Mrs. Cole? Susan breathed. We are so sorry. This should never have happened. Marco added. Suite 1602 is ready. Your preferences are already in place. Cars waiting. Breakfast orders confirmed. Kevin looked like the wind had been knocked from him. Haley sat stunned, the color draining from her cheeks. Marian said nothing. She only looked at them, quiet, composed. Isn't it strange how quickly the room changes when power walks in wearing loafers instead of heels? The moment was no longer about rooms or reservations. It was about recognition and regret. And suddenly everyone saw her. The next morning, just before 7 o'clock a.m., Marian Cole stepped into the Hillridge Grand's executive meeting room. Her charcoal suit was crisp, her heels low but deliberate. She carried no papers, no laptop, only presence. Inside, a long glass table reflected the nervous faces waiting for her. Kevin, pale and wrinkling his tie. Haley, shoulders hunched, eyes glued to her lap. And a corporate HR rep, Denise Tran, fingers poised above a laptop, like she was bracing for a storm. Susan Levin and Marco Reyes stood quietly near the window. They knew better than to speak first. Marian remained standing. Let's hear it, she said, voice steady, almost tired. What happened last night? From you. Silence. Kevin cleared his throat. Twice. Nothing came out. Haley finally whispered. I didn't think... you didn't seem like... Marian tilted her head. Didn't seem like the owner? Haley nodded. Small. Fragile. I'm sorry, she added quickly. Was I rude, loud, threatening? No, ma'am, not at all. Marian looked to Denise. I'm not here to fire anyone, she said flatly, but this can't slide. Marco stepped forward. We've issued a formal write-up for Haley. Kevin is on performance review. Inclusivity retraining begins this afternoon. Marian nodded. Once. Good, she said, then turned to Kevin. How long have you worked here? Almost 3 years, he said, quietly. And you never learned the name on the building? Of course, the clipboard like it might answer for him. She turned to Haley. You? 6 months, the girl said, barely audible. Ever wonder who designed this lobby? Who picked the chandeliers? No answer, only stillness. Isn't it strange how often we wait to see someone's worth until it's been spelled out in gold letters? Marian stepped back. This isn't punishment, she said, softer now. It's a reset. Learn what respect looks like. Not when the guest is me, but when they're anyone. And with that, she left them sitting in the quiet they had created. At 9:03 a.m., Marian found her in the staff lounge, a dim corner behind the kitchen, lit by humming fluorescent bulbs and the scent of burnt toast. Haley sat alone at a dented metal table, her hotel uniform slightly wrinkled, a paper cup of untouched coffee in her hands. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her posture folded inward, like she was trying to disappear. Marianne didn't knock. She pulled out the chair across from her and sat. Haley flinched, straightened. I'm sorry. Relax, Marian said, her voice gentler now. This isn't round 2. A pause. The fume of the refrigerator filled the silence. Marian leaned back. Ever feel small at work? Haley blinked, then gave a cautious nod. Yeah. I used to work at a truck stop diner off I-70. Cooks yelled. Truckers ignored me. Some days, I'd go 8 hours without anyone using my name. Marian nodded slowly. So you know what it feels like. Haley looked down. I didn't mean to do it to you, she whispered. But you did, Marian said. No anger, just fact. Haley's voice cracked. You didn't look like... She stopped herself, ashamed. Marian raised an eyebrow. Didn't look like what? The younger woman stared at the table, twisting her fingers. Like the owner. And there it was. The quiet poison, familiar and tired. How many people have you sized up too fast, without even knowing it? Marian didn't scold. Instead, she leaned forward. I started as a front desk clerk in Philly, nights. No coat. People called me, hey, you. One manager told me I was too sharp for hospitality, so I built my own space. Haley blinked. You were really a clerk? I was, Marian said, and I still carry that memory, that hunger, that ache to be seen. She stood and smoothed her blazer. You're not hopeless, Haley, but from now on, every guest gets the same respect, fancy or not. Haley nodded. A shaky breath escaped her. Thank you for seeing me. Marian offered a small smile. You're welcome. Just don't forget what that feels like. By noon, the lobby of the Hillridge Grand hummed with its usual rhythm. Valets darting, guests juggling luggage, someone at the cafe ordering almond milk wrong 3 times. On the surface, it all looked the same. But upstairs, behind a frosted glass door, something was shifting. Marian Cole sat at the head of a long oak table in the management suite, a stack of staff files in front of her. Beside her, Marco Reyes typed furiously, Denise from HR tweaked training slides, and Susan Levin paced with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. I'm not here to burn it down, Marian said, flipping a file closed. I'm here to fix it. Marco looked up. We've added empathy screens to the hiring process. Going forward, no more pattern bias, no more assumptions dressed up as policy. Marian nodded. Good. And next quarter, I'm back on the rotation. Random site visits. No warning. Susan raised an eyebrow. You're going undercover again? Marian didn't smile, but her eyes glinted. Let them sweat a little. Let them wonder. She rose from her seat and walked into the lobby. A new desk clerk looked up instantly, young, eager, respectful. Good afternoon, Ms. Cole. She returned a small nod. Good afternoon. She didn't need to say more. Behind her, emails were being sent. Retraining modules launched. Conversations began. Uncomfortable, but necessary. Isn't it strange how the strongest changes often happen not with fury, but with quiet, steady presence? At the valet, a car waited for her. As she slid into the back seat, she noticed a folded note tucked inside her tote bag, scribbled in ink and smudged at the edges. Thanks for seeing me. I'll do better. Haley. Simple, honest, more than any corporate apology could offer. As the car pulled away, Denver passed by in strips of steel and sky. Marian held the note loosely, watching the world blur beyond the glass. She wasn't bitter, just resolved. 15 hotels down, more to go. And wherever she went next, she'd walk in quiet, proud, and unmissable. Have you ever taught someone a lesson without ever raising your voice? Sometimes the most powerful people are the ones who say the least. They don't need to raise their voices or flash titles. They walk into a room and you feel the weight of what they've lived through. Marian Cole reminded us of that. She didn't demand respect. She simply expected it because she had earned it long before anyone looked her way. This story isn't just about hotels or CEOs. It's about how often we misjudge each other, about the quiet harm done when we see someone and assume less. But it's also a reminder. The door to respect swings both ways. We all remember times we were overlooked. And maybe, if we're honest, we can remember times we did the same to others. Real dignity is seeing people fully, without needing proof, and giving kindness before it's earned. That's something we can all practice, no matter our age. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people like Marian, rooted, calm, and walking tall. She didn't leave with applause. There was no spotlight waiting for Marian Cole, only the soft click of her heels echoing across a floor she paid for, and a folded note tucked gently in her bag. That's the kind of power she carried. Not loud, not angry, just steady, lived in, earned. The kind that doesn't break when it's ignored. The kind that keeps building. Outside, the city kept moving. But inside those hotel walls, something had shifted. Protocols were rewritten. Assumptions challenged. And while the scars of the moment would remain, so would the lesson. Dignity doesn't ask permission, and justice doesn't always come roaring. Sometimes it arrives in loafers and silence, and still rewrites the room. Marian didn't seek revenge. She chose something harder, to rebuild what others cracked, and to make sure the next time someone like her walked through that lobby, they wouldn't have to explain why they belonged. If this story stayed with you, share it, subscribe to Echoes of Racism so these voices don't fade into silence. In the meantime, I've chosen 2 stories I think will move you just as much. Take care, and we'll see you soon.